Life Audio.
The Bible Study Podcast, episode 887. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues with a study of the intertestamental period, especially 1st Maccabees, and we continue with chapter 2. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. We're getting back to the story of 1st Maccabees, continuing with chapter 2, right after a word from this sponsor. In chapter 2 of 1st Maccabees, we introduce the Maccabees, the family of people that we're going to be following, and they're not named Maccabees, but one of them has the name Maccabeus, and that's where the name comes from for this book and this family line. And it goes like this. In those days, Mattathias, son of John, son of Simeon, a priest of the clan of Jorib, moved from Jerusalem and settled in Modi'in. He had 5 sons, John, surnamed Gadi, Simon, called Thassi, Judas, called Maccabeus, Eleazar, called Avaran, and Jonathan, called Aphas. He saw the blasphemies being committed in Judah and Jerusalem and said, Alas, why was I born to see this? The ruin of my people, the ruin of the holy city. The people sat idle when it was given over to the enemy, the sanctuary given over to strangers. Her temple has become like a person without honor. Her glorious vessels have been carried into exile. Her infants have been killed in the streets, her youth by the sword of the foe. What nation has not inherited her palaces, has not seized her spoils? All her adornment has been taken away. No longer free, she has become a slave. And see, our holy place, our beauty and our glory have been laid waste. The nations have profaned them. Why should we live any longer? Then Mattathias and his sons tore their clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned greatly. So we said last time that there's a split between the people of Israel. The people around them are different from them, and some of them say it is time for us to become Greek. It's time for us to be Hellenized, to become like these other people, to worship their gods, and to act the way they act. And some of them are not. Some of them say, we are Jewish, we will always be Jewish, we will behave as Jewish people, we will keep the law. And Mattathias and his sons belong to that later half. And so we get this lament here where he's like, why do I have to live to see these days? Why do I have to live to see these blasphemies happening where there are worshiping other gods in the temple of our God? Now, remember, this is the intertestamental period, and so this is after the Babylonian captivity, where the people had been unfaithful, and therefore their country had been taken away from them for a time. They've come back, they've rebuilt the temple, and then it suddenly looks like it's starting all over again. And so you can imagine the kind of trauma that that would have for those who believe. It continues on, and I'm not sure we're going to get the whole chapter this week. There are longer chapters in this book. There's 70 verses in this particular chapter. The king's officers who were enforcing the apostasy came to the town of Modi'in to make them offer sacrifice. Many from Israel came to them, and Mattathias and his sons were assembled. Then the king's officers spoke to Mattathias as follows: You are a leader, honored and great in this town, and supported by sons and brothers. Now be the first to come and do what the king commands, as all the nations and people of Judah and those who are left in Jerusalem have done. Then you and your sons will be numbered among the friends of the king, and you and your sons will be honored with silver and gold and many gifts. But Mattathias answered and said in a loud voice, Even if all the nations that live under the rule of the king obey him and have chosen to obey his commandments, every one of them abandoning the religion of their ancestors, I and my sons and my brothers will continue to live by the covenant of our ancestors. Far be it from us to desert the law and the ordinances. We will not obey the king's word by turning aside from our religion to the right hand or to the left. When he had finished speaking these words, a Jew came forward in the sight of all to offer sacrifice on the altar in Modi'in, according to the king's command. Then Mattathias saw it, he burned with zeal, and his heart was stirred. He gave vent to righteous anger. He ran and slaughtered him on the altar. At the same time, he killed the king's officer who was forcing them to sacrifice. Then he tore down the altar. Thus he burned with zeal for the law, just as Phinehas did against Zimri, son of Salu. Then Mattathias cried out in the town with a loud voice, saying, "Let everyone who is zealous for the law and supports the covenant come out with me." Then he and his sons fled to the hills and left all they had in the town. Now, I'm going to pause there. So they come to the point here where they have to make a choice. Are they going to be faithful to the law or faithful to the king? And in this case, the king is asking them to break the law, to do something against their faith. And there are benefits for being faithless in this case, or being faithful to the king. The king is even offering, in particular, this family riches. And there are many people who have given up their faith and what it calls them to do for power or for money. It is not an uncommon thing throughout history. It's easy for us to lose track of the Great Commission, for us to lose track of love your neighbor, if there is money or power involved. If we're being dragged in a different direction or lured in a different direction, let's say, because of these sort of incentives. But Mattathias and his sons do the opposite. They give up everything. They leave the town, they leave their lives, and they flee to the hills because they can't just stay in town and be disobedient to the king. So they are now rebels. And this will begin a long set of conflicts within this book. At the time, many who were seeking righteousness and justice went down to the wilderness to live there. They, their sons, their wives, and their livestock became because troubles pressed heavily upon them. It was reported to the king's officers and to troops in Jerusalem, the city of David, that those who had rejected the king's command had gone down to the hiding places in the wilderness. Many pursued them and overtook them. They encamped opposite them and prepared for battle against them on the Sabbath day. They said to them, "Enough of this. Come out and do what the king commands, and you will live." But they said, "We will not come out, nor will we do what the king commands, and so profane the Sabbath day." Then the enemy quickly attacked them, but they did not answer them or hurl a stone at them or block up their hiding places. For they said, "Let us all die in our innocence. Heaven and earth testify for us that you are killing us unjustly." So they attacked them on the Sabbath, and they died with their wives and children and livestock, to the number of 1,000 persons. When Mattathias and his friends learned of this, they mourned for them deeply, and all said to their neighbors, "If we all do as our kindred have done and refuse to fight, and the nations for our lives and for our ordinances, they will quickly destroy us from the earth." So they made this decision that day: "Let us fight against anyone who comes to attack us on the Sabbath day. Let us not all die as our kindred died in their hiding places." So this is a tough thing that happens here. There are those who are faithful who flee to the wilderness. So they flee east of Jerusalem, out into the desert places, and they take their families, they take their livestock, and they are attacked, and they're attacked on the Sabbath. And the problem with the attack on the Sabbath is that they don't believe they're supposed to do work on the Sabbath, and rather than do work on the Sabbath, rather than fighting on the Sabbath, they choose death. This is hardcore obedience here for these 1,000, but those that survive, those that aren't in that 1,000, Mattathias and his friends and his family, they hear this and they decide at this point, we can't react in that fashion. We have to fight, even if it means fighting on the Sabbath. And so this is really the beginning of the revolution here, is in the later part of this chapter, and we'll get to that next time. But for now, what will wrap up this episode of the Bible Study Podcast here. If you have any questions, send an email to host@thebiblestudypodcast.com or leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And thanks so much for listening. I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
In a recent survey, parents reported that 52% of homeschooled children need learning accommodations. These parents need practical advice, encouragement, and hope to fuel their homeschooling efforts. The Empowering Homeschool Conversations podcast is where parents gain wisdom on how to teach unique learners successfully at home, like Laura, who recently told us, "I needed this episode. I don't need a fancy curriculum or need to be a special ed teacher to teach my son. You have given me hope." To listen now, go to Life Audio or search Empowering Homeschool Conversations on your favorite podcast app.